The lion's breath was hot on my face. I could smell it, raw meat, blood, the wild scent of an apex predator that hadn't eaten in days. Its eyes locked onto mine. Yellow. Ancient. Hungry. This animal weighed more than 3 grown men. Its mane was thick and matted with dust from the Nigerian savannah. And it was standing less than 10 feet away from me, a 32-year-old woman who had been running for her life through the bush for 6 days straight. I should have been dead. Actually, let me be more specific, I should have been dead 3 times over by that point. Once when Chief Obinna's guards dragged me out of my hut at midnight. Once when they threw me into the wilderness with nothing but the clothes on my back and a death sentence over my head. And now, standing face to face with a wild lion in the middle of the Nigerian forest, this was supposed to be the final chapter. The end of my story. But it wasn't. Because what happened next doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit into the neat little box of coincidence or luck or nature documentary explanations. What happened next was impossible. And I'm not the only one who saw it. The lion took a step toward me. My legs were shaking so violently I thought I'd collapse. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like a war drum. Every cell in my body screamed the same message, run. But there was nowhere to run. Behind me was a wall of thorny acacia bushes so thick they'd shred my skin to ribbons. To my left and right, open grassland where the lion would catch me in 3 seconds flat. This was it. This was how I died. Alone. Cast out. Forgotten. I closed my eyes and whispered the only prayer I knew anymore, Jesus, into your hands. And then the lion roared. Not at me. At them. I opened my eyes and saw what the lion had already sensed. 3 of Chief Obinna's warriors were emerging from the tree line, about 50 meters away. They'd been tracking me. Hunting me. They carried machetes that glinted in the late afternoon sun, the same machetes they'd used to threaten my children before they dragged me away. The same machetes that had ended the lives of 2 other women in our village who'd committed my same crime. The crime of choosing Jesus over the ancestor spirits. The crime of refusing to participate in the ritual sacrifices. The crime of being baptized in secret by a traveling evangelist who'd come through our region 3 months earlier. Chief Obinna had given me a choice: renounce Jesus publicly, participate in the cleansing ceremony, and beg forgiveness from the spirits, or be cast out into the wild to die. No food. No water. No shelter. The elders called it giving you to the gods to decide your fate. But everyone knew what it really meant. It meant death by exposure, starvation, or, most likely, by the teeth and claws of the predators that roamed the forests outside our village. I'd chosen Jesus. And now, 6 days later, dehydrated, delirious, covered in cuts and insect bites, I was watching 3 grown men with weapons approach me for the final kill. Because apparently, the gods weren't working fast enough for Chief Obinna's liking. But the lion had other plans. It turned its massive body, easily 400 pounds of pure muscle, and positioned itself directly between me and the warriors. It didn't crouch into a hunting stance. It stood tall. Protective. Like a guard dog, except this was a wild lion in the Nigerian bush. This animal had never seen a human as anything other than prey or threat. Yet here it stood, its back to me, its gaze fixed on the 3 men who had frozen in their tracks. And then it roared again. The sound was so deep, so powerful, it vibrated through the ground beneath my bare feet. It rattled my ribcage. It was the sound of authority, of territorial dominance, of a warning that needed no translation. The warriors stumbled backward. One of them, Emeka, I recognized him, he used to trade palm wine with my husband, dropped his machete. The metal blade clanged against a rock. Witchcraft, he screamed. She has cursed us. The lion obeys her. But I hadn't done anything. I was as shocked as they were. I stood there, trembling, tears streaming down my face, watching this impossible scene unfold. The lion didn't move. It held its ground. The warriors backed away slowly, then turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush like frightened children. And I was alone with the lion. For 3 heartbeats, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, the lion turned its head and looked at me over its shoulder. Our eyes met. And I swear on everything I have left in this world, that animal looked at me with something that wasn't hunger. It was recognition. Purpose. Like it knew exactly why it was there. Then it turned back toward the direction the warriors had fled, laid down on the ground about 15 feet in front of me, and stayed there. For 3 days. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing. I'm not making this more dramatic than it was. For 3 days, that lion stayed between me and the outside world. It left occasionally, I assumed to hunt and drink, but it always came back. It slept. It watched the perimeter. And it didn't touch me. Not once. On the 3rd day, a group of traveling merchants passed through the area. They saw the lion. They saw me. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. One of them was a Christian from a neighboring region. He said, "Sister, God has sent you a guardian. Just like Daniel in the den." And that's when I knew. This wasn't luck. This wasn't animal behavior or coincidence or a friendly lion story for National Geographic. This was a miracle. A biblical, impossible, God-sized miracle. The same Jesus I'd whispered prayers to in my hut at night, the same Jesus I'd been willing to die for rather than deny, had sent a wild animal to protect me. The merchants helped me reach a missionary outpost 2 days' walk away. When I told them what happened, they wept. When I showed them the scars on my feet from 6 days of wandering, they wept harder. And when I described the look in that lion's eyes, the way it positioned itself between me and death, they said what I already knew in my heart. Jesus is still doing miracles. And you're the proof. But let me take you back. Back to the night this impossible story began. Back to the moment my whole world shattered. Back to Chief Obinna's compound, where I knelt in the dirt with my hands bound, surrounded by the entire village, while the man who controlled every aspect of our lives pronounced my death sentence. Because you need to understand, the miracle didn't start with the lion. It started with a choice. A choice that should have killed me. But instead, it introduced me to the God who commands lions, who sees the outcast, who hears the desperate prayer whispered in the darkness. I didn't know it that night, kneeling in the dirt with my children sobbing behind me. But I was about to witness a biblical miracle, in 2024, in Nigeria, in the 21st century. And everything I thought I knew about God, about power, about what's possible, it was all about to be shattered and rebuilt by the one whose name I'd whispered in the darkness. Jesus. Chief Obinna was not a man you questioned. In our village of Adaorah, in the southeastern forests of Nigeria, his word was law. Not the government's law, we were too remote for that, too forgotten by the officials in their air-conditioned offices in Abuja. No, Chief Obinna's law was older, deeper, more terrifying. It was the law of the ancestors, the law of blood and soil, the law that said if you broke tradition, you didn't just lose your rights, you lost your life. I'd known this man my entire life. I'd watched him preside over festivals, settle disputes, arrange marriages. I'd seen him smile at children during harvest celebrations. But I'd also seen the other side. The side that appeared when someone challenged the old ways. The side that emerged when 16-year-old Adaorah was found with a Christian tract and was forced to drink a purification mixture that left her vomiting blood for 3 days. The side that ordered Mama Ngozi tied to a post in the village square for 2 days without food or water because she'd refused to offer a chicken sacrifice when her son fell ill. Chief Obinna ruled through fear disguised as tradition. And everyone knew that crossing him meant death. I should have known better. But you see, when Jesus gets a hold of your heart, knowing better stops being enough. When you've encountered the living God, when you've felt His presence in a way that rewrites your entire understanding of reality, you can't just go back to pretending the old ways are the only ways. You can't bow to carved wood and stone when you've met the one who carved the mountains. The trouble started 3 months before my exile. A traveling evangelist named Brother Chukwuma came through our region. He was Igbo like us, spoke our language, understood our culture. But he carried something different, a peace that didn't come from palm wine or herb mixtures or appeasing angry spirits. He held open-air meetings on the outskirts of nearby villages, always careful to stay just beyond the reach of chiefs like Obinna. I went to one meeting. Just curiosity, I told myself. I was a good village woman. I participated in all the rituals. I poured libations to the ancestors. I respected the shrines. But I was also tired. So tired. Tired of being afraid of invisible spirits. Tired of never knowing if I'd angered some deity I'd never even heard of. Tired of watching my children grow up in the same fear that had choked my own childhood. Brother Chukwuma preached about a God who didn't demand fear, he offered love. A God who didn't require endless sacrifices, he'd made the final sacrifice himself. A God whose name was Jesus, and whose power was greater than every ancestor spirit, every territorial demon, every curse that had ever been spoken over our land. I didn't believe him at first. But then he prayed for a woman with a twisted leg, something she'd had since birth. We all knew her. Obiageli. She'd walked with a severe limp for 43 years. And when Brother Chukwuma placed his hand on her leg and commanded it to straighten in Jesus' name, it did. Right there. In front of 60 witnesses. Her leg straightened, the twisted bone realigned, and she walked, without limping for the first time in her entire life. I felt something break open inside my chest. Like a dam bursting. All the fear, all the religious obligation, all the exhausting effort to appease spirits who never seemed satisfied, it all cracked apart. And underneath was a hunger I didn't know I had. A hunger for this God. This Jesus. This one who healed instead of cursing, who freed instead of enslaving. I gave my life to Jesus that night. So did 23 others from various villages. We were baptized in secret in a stream 2 kilometers into the forest. Brother Chukwuma warned us, this decision may cost you everything. In these regions, leaving the ancestor worship isn't seen as a personal choice, it's seen as betraying your entire community. Some of you will face rejection. Some will face violence. But Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. He is worth it. I believed him. I still do. But I didn't fully understand what cost you everything meant until the night Chief Obinna found out. It was my neighbor, Ifeoma, who betrayed me. I don't hate her for it, she was terrified of being associated with me. She'd seen me reading a small Igbo New Testament that Brother Chukwuma had given me. She'd heard me praying to Jesus instead of pouring libations at the family shrine. And when Chief Obinna's spiritual advisor, a man we called Dibia, the traditional priest, began asking questions about who'd attended the evangelists' meetings, Ifeoma gave him my name. They came for me on a moonless night. 3 of the chief's guards, Emeka, Obi, and a younger man whose name I never learned, knocked on my door at midnight. My husband, Ikenna, answered. He wasn't a believer. He'd forbidden me from attending any more Christian meetings after he'd heard rumors. We'd been fighting about it for weeks. The chief summoned your wife, Emeka said. His voice was flat. Emotionless. That's how I knew it was serious. When the guards showed emotion, anger, irritation, even cruel amusement, you might escape with a beating or a fine. But when they went emotionless, when their voices became dead and official, it meant Chief Obinna had made a final decision. My husband protested. It's midnight. Surely this can wait until now. Obi's hand moved to the machete at his belt. My children, 3 of them, ages 6, 9, and 11, woke up and began crying. My youngest, Chisholm, clung to my wrapper skirt. Mama, don't go. Mama. I knelt down and held her face in my hands. Be strong, my daughter. Jesus is with Mama. Jesus is with you too. That was my mistake. Saying his name out loud. Emeka's eyes narrowed. So it's true. You've abandoned the ancestors. They dragged me out of my home. My husband didn't fight for me, he couldn't, not against the chief's authority. But I heard him crying. I heard my children screaming my name. And I heard my mother-in-law, who lived with us, shouting, "She has brought shame on this family. Let the gods punish her." They brought me to Chief Obinna's compound. The entire village was already there, over 300 people, gathered in the large clearing in front of the chief's house. Torches burned. Drums were silent. This wasn't a celebration. This was a trial. Chief Obinna sat in his carved wooden throne, wearing his ceremonial robes and the leopard skin headdress that marked his authority. He was 71 years old, but his eyes were sharp and cold. He looked at me the way you look at a snake that slithered into your home. Not with hatred. With disgust. With the certainty that you're about to kill it. Dibia, the traditional priest, stood beside him. He was holding my small Igbo Bible, the one I'd hidden under my sleeping mat. They'd searched my house. Adaorah, Chief Obinna's voice boomed across the clearing. My name in his mouth sounded like a curse. You stand accused of abandoning the covenant of our ancestors. Of worshipping the foreign god. Of bringing spiritual contamination into this village. How do you answer? My legs were shaking. I could feel 300 pairs of eyes on me. I could hear people I'd known my whole life whispering. She's possessed. She'll bring curses on all of us. Her children will suffer for this. But underneath the fear, I felt something else. A small, steady voice that said, "Tell the truth. I am with you." I lifted my chin. My voice came out stronger than I expected. I have given my life to Jesus Christ. He is not foreign, he is Lord of all the earth. He is Lord of Nigeria. He is Lord of Adaorah. And he is stronger than any ancestor spirit. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. Dibia stepped forward, shaking with rage. You dare speak such blasphemy? You dare insult the spirits who have protected this village for generations? They haven't protected us, I said. My voice was rising now, fueled by something beyond myself. They've enslaved us. We live in fear. We sacrifice and it's never enough. But Jesus gave himself as the final sacrifice. He doesn't demand our blood. He shed his own blood. For us. For you. Chief Obinna stood. The movement silenced everyone. You have made your choice, he said quietly. Dangerously. You have broken covenant with your people. You have rejected the ancestors. You have invited curses upon yourself and upon any who associate with you. He nodded to Dibia, who began to chant in the old language. It was a curse. I could feel the weight of it, the spiritual darkness pressing against the clearing. People began to back away from me, creating a circle of empty space. I was already becoming a ghost to them. Already dead. The ancestors will decide your fate, Chief Obinna pronounced. You will be cast out. Beyond our borders. Into the forest. You will take nothing. No food, no water, no tools. If the spirits you have offended show mercy, perhaps you will survive. If not. He shrugged. Your blood will not be on our hands. It was a death sentence. Everyone knew it. The forests outside our village were dense, unmapped, filled with dangerous animals and deadly plants. People who got lost in there rarely came back. And I was being sent in with nothing. At night. Alone. They bound my hands and marched me to the village boundary. The guards walked in formation around me, not to keep me from escaping, but to make sure no one helped me. My husband and children were held back at the compound. I could hear Chisholm still screaming for me, her voice growing fainter with distance. At the boundary line, Emeka cut the ropes on my wrists. Run, he said. And don't come back. If you return, the chief has ordered you killed on sight. Then he shoved me forward, across the invisible line that separated village from wilderness, civilization from chaos, life from death. I stumbled into the darkness. Behind me, I heard the guards chanting a warding prayer, protecting themselves from whatever contamination I carried. Then their footsteps faded. The torchlight disappeared. And I was alone. In the absolute blackness of the Nigerian forest. In the middle of the night. With no supplies, no weapon, no shelter. Just the clothes on my back and a death sentence hanging over my head. But they'd forgotten something. I wasn't alone. I dropped to my knees in the dirt and whispered into the darkness, "Jesus, you said you would never leave me or forsake me. I'm holding you to that promise. I don't know how to survive out here. But you do. Please, please don't let this be the end." I didn't hear an audible voice. There was no lightning, no angel appearing. Just the sound of night insects and the rustling of leaves in the wind. But in my heart, deep in that place where his spirit had taken residence 3 months ago, I heard him whisper, "Walk. I will lead you." So I stood up. I chose a direction. I had no idea if it was north or south or east or west, and I started walking. Behind me was everything I'd ever known. My home. My family. My identity. Ahead was wilderness, danger, and probable death. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Because I'd just learned something Chief Obinna didn't know, something Dibia couldn't understand, something the ancestors had no power over. When you belong to Jesus, you're never truly cast out. You're cast upward. Into his hands. Into his story. Into a miracle. I just didn't know yet that the miracle would have 4 legs, golden eyes, and a roar that would shake the foundations of everything my village believed about power. The first night in the forest, I thought I'd die of fear before anything had a chance to kill me. Every sound was a threat. The crack of a branch, a predator stalking. The rustle of leaves, a snake preparing to strike. The distant call of a night bird, or was it something else? Something territorial? Something hungry? I'd lived near this forest my entire life, but I'd never been in it. Not like this. Not alone. Not at night. The darkness was so complete it felt like a physical presence, pressing against my skin, filling my lungs, suffocating me with its weight. I kept walking because stopping felt like giving up. And if I gave up, if I sat down and let the fear paralyze me, I knew I'd never get up again. My feet were bare. Within an hour, they were bleeding. The forest floor was covered in sharp roots, thorns, hidden rocks. I stepped on something that squirmed beneath my foot and I screamed, jumping back, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I don't know what it was. I didn't want to know. By the time the sun rose, I'd been walking for 6 hours straight. I had no idea how far I'd traveled, maybe 3 kilometers, maybe 10. Distance loses meaning when you're just trying to survive until dawn. The light brought relief and new terror in equal measure. Relief because I could finally see where I was stepping. Terror because now I could see exactly how lost I was. The forest stretched in every direction, dense and endless. The trees were so thick overhead they blocked out most of the sky. Vines hung like ropes. The air was humid, heavy, hard to breathe. And I had no idea which direction led to safety, if safety even existed anywhere near here. My throat was already dry. I hadn't drunk anything since dinner the previous evening, before the guards came, before everything shattered. I needed water. Desperately. But I didn't know which plants were safe, which streams might be contaminated, which pools of standing water carried disease. I stopped walking and stood in a small clearing, turning in a slow circle. The hopelessness hit me all at once, like a wave crashing over someone who'd been treading water for too long. I sank to the ground and began to cry. Not quiet tears. Deep, body-shaking sobs that tore out of my chest. I cried for my children. I cried for my husband. I cried for the life I'd lost. I cried because I was 32 years old and I was going to die alone in this forest and no one would ever find my body. Animals would scatter my bones. I'd simply disappear, as if I'd never existed. And then I remembered, I wasn't supposed to be alone. Jesus had promised. I will never leave you or forsake you. That's what the scripture said. That's what I'd believed when I'd knelt in the darkness at the village boundary. So I prayed. Out loud, because the silence was too oppressive. Jesus, I need water. I need food. I need direction. I need you to show me you're real. Please. I gave up everything for you. My family. My home. Please don't let me die out here without knowing it mattered. I waited. Listening. Hoping for a sign. A direction. A miracle. Nothing. Just the buzz of insects and the distant screech of a monkey. I prayed again. Jesus, please. I'm begging you. Just show me which way to walk. Just give me water. Just something. Silence. The sun climbed higher. The heat became brutal. My tongue started to feel thick in my mouth. I knew the signs, dehydration was setting in. I had maybe 2 days before my body started shutting down. Maybe less in this heat. I forced myself to stand and kept walking. What else could I do? That first day, I found nothing. No water. No food. No sign of human civilization. Just endless trees and a growing certainty that I was going to die out here. When night fell again, I climbed into the low branches of a tree. I was terrified of sleeping on the ground where snakes and insects and who knows what else could crawl over me. I wedged myself into a fork between 2 branches and tried to sleep. But every time I started to drift off, my body would jerk awake, terrified I'd fall. The second day was worse. The thirst was becoming unbearable. My lips were cracked. My throat felt like I'd swallowed sand. I stumbled more than walked, tripping over roots, bouncing off trees. My mind started playing tricks on me. I saw water that wasn't there, puddles that vanished when I got close. I heard voices, my children calling for me, my mother singing a lullaby from my childhood. I prayed constantly. Desperately. Jesus, water. Please. Just water. But the heavens felt silent. Closed. As if God had turned his face away. And that's when the truly dark thoughts began. What if I got it wrong? What if Jesus isn't real? What if I traded my family, my life, my everything, for a lie? The ancestors are angry. Dibia cursed me. What if his curse is real and Jesus can't, or won't, break it? What if I'm being punished? What if this is what I deserve for abandoning my people? I want you to understand something. I was a brand new believer. 3 months old in the faith. I didn't have years of testimonies to look back on. I didn't have a deep well of scripture memorized to draw from. I had one encounter with Jesus at Brother Chukwuma's meeting. I had the memory of a woman's leg being healed. And I had a promise that he would never leave me. But I couldn't feel him. I couldn't hear him. And I was dying. On the afternoon of the second day, I collapsed. I couldn't walk anymore. My legs simply gave out. I lay on the forest floor, staring up at the tiny patches of sky visible through the canopy, and I gave up. I can't do this, I whispered. My voice was hoarse, barely audible. Jesus, I can't. If you're going to save me, you need to do it now. Because I have nothing left. I closed my eyes and waited to die. I don't know how long I lay there. Time stopped meaning anything. But at some point, I heard something. A sound that didn't belong to the forest. Voices. Human voices. My eyes flew open. Was I hallucinating again? No. The voices were real. And they were getting closer. I tried to call out, but my throat was too dry. Only a croak emerged. I tried to sit up and failed. My body wouldn't obey. Then they appeared through the trees. 2 men. Young, maybe early 20s. They were dressed in simple clothes, carrying machetes and a jerry can. Local hunters or farmers, probably from a village I didn't know. They saw me and stopped dead in their tracks. Chinik, one of them exclaimed. Brother, there's a woman here. They rushed over. One of them knelt beside me while the other unscrewed the cap on the jerry can. Water. They had water. Drink slowly, the first man said, helping me sit up and pressing the container to my lips. Small sips. You're severely dehydrated. The water was the most beautiful thing I'd ever tasted. I wanted to gulp it down, but he controlled the flow, making me take slow, measured sips. After a few moments, my throat loosened enough for me to speak. Thank you, I rasped. Thank you. What are you doing out here? The second man asked. Are you lost? Where's your village? And then I had to make a choice. Tell them the truth, that I'd been cast out for converting to Christianity, or lie and say I'd gotten lost. I looked into their faces. They'd shown me kindness. They'd given me water when I was dying. I couldn't repay that with a lie. I was cast out, I said quietly. From Upra village. 2 days ago. For becoming a Christian. Their expressions changed. The first man, the one holding the jerry can, pulled back slightly. The second one's hand moved toward his machete. You're the one, he said slowly. We heard about you. The woman who betrayed the ancestors. Chief Obinna put a death curse on you. My heart sank. Even here, miles from my village, my reputation had preceded me. Please, I begged. I'm not asking you to take me in. Just point me toward the nearest town. Somewhere I can. We can't, the first man interrupted. He looked genuinely sorry, but also genuinely afraid. If we help someone under a death curse, we bring it on ourselves. On our families. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. He set the jerry can down beside me, at least he left me the water, and both men backed away. May the gods have mercy on you, the second man said. Then they turned and disappeared back into the forest, moving quickly, as if proximity to me was dangerous. I was alone again. But I had water. I drank more, carefully, letting my body absorb it. And with the water came a tiny sliver of clarity. A small voice in my spirit that said, I sent them. I gave you water. I am here. It wasn't a dramatic miracle. It wasn't angels or fire from heaven. It was 2 frightened men who'd left me a jerry can of water. But it was something. A sign that God saw me. That I wasn't completely abandoned. I survived another day on that water. And then another. I found fruit I recognized as edible, wild mangoes, small and sour but nutritious. I found a stream and drank from it, praying over the water that God would protect me from sickness. I kept walking, always moving, because staying still felt like death. By day 6, I was a shadow of myself. I'd lost weight I didn't have to lose. My clothes were torn and filthy. My hair was matted with leaves and dirt. Cuts and insect bites covered my arms and legs, some of them infected and oozing. I was surviving, but barely. And I was still utterly, completely lost. That's when I heard them. Chief Obinna's warriors. Their voices carried through the forest, they weren't trying to be quiet. They were hunting me like an animal, confident in their superior numbers and strength. She can't have gone far, I heard Emeka say. She's weak. No survival skills. We'll find her body soon enough. Or what's left of it after the animals finish, another voice laughed. I froze behind a thick tree trunk, my hand pressed over my mouth to silence my breathing. They were close. Too close. Why were they even looking for me? Hadn't casting me out been enough? Then I heard Dibia's voice, reedy and sharp, the chief wants confirmation of death. The curse cannot be complete until we know her body has returned to the earth. We must find her. So they weren't content to let the forest kill me. They wanted to witness it. To ensure it. To make certain that the woman who'd chosen Jesus over the ancestors was truly, definitively dead. I waited until their voices faded in a different direction, then I ran. Stumbled, really. My body was too weak for actual running. But I moved as fast as I could, crashing through undergrowth, not caring about noise anymore because staying ahead of them was the only thing that mattered. I don't know how long I ran. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. And then the forest opened up into a small clearing, and I saw it. A lioness, lying in the tall grass about 20 meters away. She saw me at the exact same moment I saw her. We both froze. My mind went blank. This was it. After 6 days of survival, after water and fruit and escaping the warriors, this was how I died. Torn apart by a predator. The lioness stood slowly. Her muscles rippled under her tawny coat. She was lean, hungry, probably. Her eyes locked onto mine. Every survival instinct I had left screamed at me to run. But I knew, with absolute certainty, that running would trigger her chase instinct. I'd be dead in seconds. So I did the only thing I had left. I dropped to my knees, raised my hands toward heaven, and spoke out loud. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Daniel survived the lion's den because you shut their mouths. I'm asking, no, I'm begging, do it again. Do it for me. Shut this lion's mouth. Let her pass me by. Please, Jesus. Please. The lioness took a step toward me. Then another. She was 10 meters away. Then 8. Then 6. I kept praying, my eyes squeezed shut now because I couldn't watch my own death approach. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I felt her breath on my face. Hot. Close. Carnivore breath, blood and meat and death. This was the moment. This was the end. But then, I heard something else. Men's voices. The warriors. They'd changed direction. They were heading toward this clearing. And that's when everything changed. The lioness heard them too. She turned her massive head toward the sound of approaching humans. And instead of attacking me, instead of doing what every wild predator in Africa would do when cornered with prey, she did something impossible. She positioned herself between me and them. And she roared. I need you to understand something about that roar. It wasn't just sound. It was a declaration. A boundary line drawn in the air with teeth and fury and primal authority. The roar vibrated through the ground, through my bones, through the very molecules of the clearing. It was the sound of a creature that feared nothing, that bowed to no one, except, impossibly, she had just chosen not to kill me. She had chosen to protect me. My eyes were still closed. My hands were still raised toward heaven. But I wasn't praying words anymore, I was just breathing his name over and over like a lifeline, Jesus. 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 The warriors burst into the clearing and stopped so suddenly I heard one of them trip and fall. Through my half-opened eyes, I could see them, Emeka, Obi, and a third man I didn't recognize. All three held machetes. All three had frozen in place, staring at the lioness standing between them and me. What sorcery is this? Obi's voice cracked with fear. The lioness didn't attack. She didn't crouch into a hunting position. She just stood there, massive and unmovable, her body angled protectively in front of me. Her tail swished once. Twice. Every muscle in her body was coiled, ready, warning. She's cursed the animal, the third warrior shouted. She's made it her demon servant. No, Dibia's voice came from behind them. The old priest pushed through, his ritual staff in hand, beads and bones rattling. His eyes narrowed as he studied the scene. This is not her power. This is something else. He began chanting in the old language, waving his staff toward the lioness. It was a binding curse, meant to weaken spiritual power. I'd heard him use it before on people accused of witchcraft. The words hung in the air like smoke, dark and oppressive. The lioness didn't even flinch. If anything, she seemed to grow larger. More solid. More present. Dibia's chanting faltered. His face went pale. This is not our spiritual realm. This is foreign power. Then we kill them both. Emeka raised his machete and took a step forward. The lioness roared again, louder this time, a sound that sent birds exploding from the trees in every direction. Emeka stumbled backward, dropping his weapon. The other warriors retreated several steps. "We need spears," Obi said, his voice shaking. "We can't fight that with machetes." "Go," Dibia commanded. "Return to the village. Bring spears, bring nets, bring fire if necessary. We will end this abomination." They fled. Actually fled, running back into the forest like children escaping a nightmare. Dibia stayed a moment longer, his eyes moving from the lioness to me. When our gazes met, I saw something in his face I'd never seen before: uncertainty. Fear. The old priest who'd wielded spiritual power over our village for 40 years was staring at something his worldview couldn't explain. "Your foreign god will not save you," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "When we return, we will burn you both." Then he turned and disappeared into the trees. The lioness watched until they were completely gone. Then, slowly, she turned back to look at me. We were alone again. Just the two of us in that clearing. A dying woman and a wild predator that should have killed her. I still couldn't move. Terror and awe had paralyzed me in equal measure. The lioness studied me with those amber eyes, intelligent, ancient, unknowable. Then she did something that shattered every remaining doubt in my mind about whether this was coincidence or miracle. She walked over to me, not stalking, not hunting, but walking with almost casual grace, and she laid down. Right beside me. Close enough that I could have reached out and touched her. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her body. She positioned herself so that her back was to me and her gaze was fixed on the direction the warriors had gone. She was guarding me. A wild African lioness was guarding me. I began to weep. Not from fear anymore, but from overwhelming, crushing gratitude. God had heard me. God had answered. Not in the way I expected, not with angels or lightning or an audible voice, but with this. With a living, breathing miracle that defied every natural law. "Thank you," I whispered. My voice was hoarse, broken. "Jesus, thank you. I don't understand how or why, but thank you." The lioness's ear twitched at the sound of my voice, but she didn't turn around. She just kept watching. Waiting. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't over. The warriors were coming back. With spears. With nets. With fire. And when they did, they wouldn't just kill me, they'd kill this magnificent animal that God had sent to protect me. I couldn't let that happen. But I had no weapons. No strength. No plan. All I had was prayer. So I prayed. I prayed in a way I'd never prayed before. Not formal prayers or memorized words from the few scripture passages I knew. I prayed like someone having a conversation with the only person in the universe who could possibly help. Like a daughter talking to her father. Like someone who'd finally understood that God wasn't distant or disinterested, he was right here, orchestrating miracles through lionesses and giving water through frightened farmers and keeping me alive for a purpose I didn't yet understand. "Jesus," I said out loud, because the silence of the forest felt like sacred space now, not threatening emptiness. "I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you sent this lioness. I don't know why I'm still alive. But I know, that you didn't bring me this far just to let them burn us both." I paused, gathering courage for what I needed to say next. "I'm scared. I won't lie to you. I'm terrified. But I'm also done running. Done hiding. Done being ashamed of choosing you. So here's what I'm asking: if this is where I die, if this clearing becomes my grave, then let it mean something. Let it be such a powerful testimony that everyone who hears this story knows that you are real. That you are God. That you are worth losing everything for. The lioness shifted slightly, as if settling in for a long watch. And if, my voice broke, if there's any way you can get me back to my children, back to my village, back to anyone who needs to hear this testimony, then I'm asking. I'm begging. Use me. Use this story. Don't let this miracle be wasted. The sun was beginning to set. Golden light filtered through the trees, painting everything in warm amber tones. It would have been beautiful if I wasn't sitting next to a lioness, waiting for warriors to return with weapons designed to kill us both. I thought about my children. Chisholm, my youngest, who was terrified of the dark and needed me to sing to her every night before she'd sleep. Kalechi, my middle child, who asked endless questions about everything. Ozioma, my oldest, who was just starting to become a young woman and needed her mother to guide her. Would they ever know what happened to me? Would anyone tell them about the lioness? Would they grow up thinking their mother had abandoned them? Jesus, please, I whispered. Let them know. Somehow. Let them know I love them. Let them know I didn't choose you over them, I chose you for them. So they could grow up knowing there's a God who does miracles. A God who's bigger than fear. A God who's worth everything. Night fell. The temperature dropped. And the lioness didn't move. I was so exhausted that eventually, impossibly, I fell asleep. Right there on the ground, less than a meter from a wild predator. But somehow I knew, deep in my spirit, that I was safe. Safer than I'd been in my own village. Safer than I'd been anywhere in my entire life. Because I wasn't alone. Jesus was there. I couldn't see him with my eyes, but I could feel his presence like a tangible warmth wrapping around me. And he'd sent this lioness as a visible, undeniable sign that he was in control. That my life was hidden in his hands. That no weapon formed against me would prosper. I woke sometime in the middle of the night to the sound of movement. The lioness was standing again, her body tense, her gaze fixed on the forest. I heard them before I saw them, the warriors, returning. I could see torchlight flickering between the trees. They'd brought fire, just as Dibia had promised. Terror surged through me again. But this time it was different. This time underneath the fear was something solid. Something unshakable. Faith. Real faith. The kind that says, even if he doesn't rescue me, he's still God. He's still good. He's still worth it. The warriors entered the clearing, at least 10 of them this time, maybe more. They carried spears, machetes, and torches. Dibia was with them, along with Chief Obinna himself. The chief rarely left the village compound. His presence meant this was personal. This was a demonstration. Adaorah. Chief Obinna's voice boomed across the clearing. Your rebellion ends tonight. We will kill the demon animal. And then we will kill you. Your Christian God cannot save you. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking but holding. The lioness growled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. My God already saved me. I shouted back. My voice was stronger than I expected. Clearer. He saved me from death by thirst. He saved me from getting lost. And he sent this lioness, this wild animal, to protect me from you. Tell me, Chief Obinna, which God has more power? The ancestors who need constant appeasement? Or the Jesus who commands creation itself? Blasphemy. Dibia shrieked. Is it? I was surprised by my own boldness. It was like someone else was speaking through me, or someone else. This lioness should have killed me. Every natural instinct should have driven her to attack. Instead, she's been guarding me. 4 hours. Explain that with your ancestral magic. Explain that with your curses and your chants. Chief Obinna's face twisted with rage. Kill them. Kill them both. Now. The warriors advanced, spears raised. The lioness roared and crouched, ready to fight. And I raised my hands toward heaven one more time and prayed the prayer that would change everything. Jesus, Son of the living God, you who calmed the storm and walked on water, you who raised the dead and opened blind eyes, do it again. Show them your power. Show them you're real. Not for my sake, but for yours. For your glory. For your name. And that's when it happened. The impossible. The unexplainable. The undeniable. The miracle that would make even Chief Obinna fall to his knees. The first spear flew through the air, aimed directly at the lioness. I watched it arc through the torchlight, spinning end over end, death in motion. The warrior who'd thrown it, Obi, I think, was known as the best hunter in 3 villages. He didn't miss. Ever. I'd seen him bring down a running antelope at 30 meters. The lioness was maybe 15 meters away. Stationary. An impossible target to miss. The spear should have pierced her chest. Instead, it veered. Mid-flight. Like an invisible hand had swatted it aside. The spear embedded itself in the ground 3 meters to the left of the lioness, quivering in the dirt. Everyone froze. What? Obi stared at his own hand, then at the spear, then back at his hand. That's impossible. I aim true. Throw again. Chief Obinna commanded. All of you. Now. 3 more spears flew. I watched them all, time seemed to slow down, every detail crystallizing with horrible clarity. One spear sailed high, far over the lioness's head, as if the warrior's arm had suddenly lost all strength. Another spun wildly off course and clattered into the trees. The third stopped. Just stopped. Mid-air. For a fraction of a second it hung suspended between the warriors and the lioness, defying gravity, defying physics, defying everything. Then it dropped straight down, hitting the ground with a dull thud. Chinik mo, someone screamed. My God. The warriors stumbled backward, several of them dropping their weapons. Even in the flickering torchlight, I could see the terror on their faces. This wasn't natural. This wasn't explainable. This was something beyond their understanding, beyond their control. Dibia stepped forward, his ritual staff raised, beads and bones clattering as he shook it toward us. You see, he shouted, his voice cracking. She has powerful sorcery. She has made a covenant with dark forces. But even as he spoke, I saw the doubt in his eyes. Because he knew. He knew the difference between spiritual manipulation and divine intervention. He'd spent his entire life in the spirit realm, the dark corners of it, yes, but he understood spiritual power. And what he was witnessing now wasn't from any source he could access or control. This isn't sorcery, I said. My voice carried across the clearing with a strength that wasn't my own. This is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God who parted the Red Sea. The God who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel. The God who sent his son Jesus to die for all of us, including you, Chief Obinna. Including you, Dibia. Including every person standing in this clearing. Silence her. Chief Obinna roared. 2 warriors rushed forward with machetes raised. The lioness exploded into motion, not toward them, but between us, placing her body as a living barrier. She didn't attack. She just stood there, and the warriors' momentum died as they came face to face with 400 pounds of apex predator. Then the lioness did something that made my breath catch in my throat. She roared, but this roar was different. It wasn't aggressive or territorial. It was calling. Summoning. A sound that carried into the forest like a command. And the forest answered. From the darkness beyond the torchlight, I heard movement. Rustling. Footsteps? No, paw steps. Multiple animals moving through the undergrowth. The warriors heard it too. They spun around, weapons raised, trying to see what was coming. 3 more lions emerged from the tree line. 2 males and another female. They walked into the clearing with the casual confidence of creatures that had never known fear, their eyes reflecting the torchlight like amber mirrors. They didn't rush or charge. They simply positioned themselves around the clearing, forming a living perimeter between me and the warriors. 4 lions. 4 wild lions. Acting in coordination. Protecting one Christian woman who should have been dead 6 days ago. One of the younger warriors dropped his machete and ran. Just turned and sprinted into the forest, screaming. 2 others followed. The remaining men pressed together, back to back, weapons shaking in their hands. Stand your ground. Chief Obinna commanded, but his voice had lost its authority. For the first time in my life, I heard fear in the chief's voice. Real, unfiltered terror. Dibia was chanting frantically now, his binding curses flowing one after another, his staff waving patterns in the air. But the lions didn't react. They didn't even look at him. It was as if his spiritual power, the power that had controlled our village for decades, was completely invisible to them. Useless. Your magic isn't working, I said quietly. Because this isn't magic. This is God. There is no such power. Dibia shrieked, but his hands were shaking. The ancestors are supreme. The old ways are. One of the male lions, the larger one, with a thick dark mane, took 3 steps toward Dibia. Just 3 steps. Deliberate. Measured. A warning. Dibia's voice died in his throat. He stumbled backward, tripping over his own robes, and fell hard on his backside. His ritual staff rolled away into the grass. For 40 years, this man had wielded spiritual intimidation like a weapon. He'd cursed people, bound them, controlled them through fear of the invisible realm. Now he lay in the dirt, powerless, staring up at a lion that could crush his skull with one bite, and chose not to. Please, Dibia whispered. Not to me. Not to the lions. To someone beyond both. Please. Chief Obinna looked at his priest on the ground, then at the lions, then at me. I saw the calculation in his eyes. The pride warring with survival instinct. He was a chief. He couldn't show weakness. But he was also a human being facing 4 apex predators that were behaving in ways that shouldn't be possible. We will return, he said, forcing authority back into his voice. With guns. With nets. With what? I interrupted. The boldness surging through me was intoxicating, terrifying, exhilarating all at once. With bullets? Do you think bullets will work any better than spears? Chief Obinna, you're not fighting me. You're fighting the God who created those lions. The God who gave them their strength. The God who's commanding them right now to protect me. No God has such power over nature, he said, but the words sounded hollow. Then explain this. I gestured to the 4 lions surrounding us. Explain why they haven't attacked me. Explain why they're protecting me instead. Explain why your spears missed. Explain why your spiritual authority, I looked at Dibia, still on the ground, means nothing here. Silence. The only sound was the crackling of the torches and the heavy breathing of terrified men. Then Chief Obinna did something I never expected. He looked directly at me, really looked at me, not as a rebel or a blasphemer, but as a human being, and he asked a question. Who is this God of yours? Not mocking. Not rhetorical. Genuine. The question of a man whose entire worldview was cracking apart. I took a breath. This was it. This was the moment. The reason I was still alive. The reason God had sent the lions. Not just to protect me. To create a testimony. To open a door. His name is Jesus, I said. He's the Son of the Most High God. He came to earth as a human, lived a perfect life, and died on a cross, not because he was weak, but because he chose to take the punishment for our sins. Yours. Mine. Everyone's. And then he rose from the dead 3 days later, proving he has power over death itself. Why would a god die? One of the warriors asked. Gods don't die. He died so we wouldn't have to, I said. So we could be free from sin, from fear, from the power of death. And then he rose again so we could have eternal life. With him. Forever. And he sent these animals? Chief Obinna gestured at the lions with his chin, still not taking his eyes off them. Yes. Because he loves me. Because my life has value to him. Because he wants all of you. I looked around at every face, to know that he's real. That he's powerful. That he's here. Not distant. Not silent. Not disinterested. Here. The largest male lion yawned, an enormous, teeth-bearing yawn that showed every fang in his mouth. Several warriors flinched. But I understood. The lion was relaxed. The threat was over. Not because the warriors had retreated, they were still standing there, but because something had shifted in the spiritual atmosphere. The aggression had drained away. I'm not asking you to believe me, I continued, my voice softer now. I'm asking you to believe what you're seeing. Your own eyes. Your own experience. You came here to kill me. You threw spears that should have hit. You have weapons and numbers and strength on your side. And yet, I paused, letting the reality sink in, you can't touch me. Because God is protecting me. Dibia struggled to his feet, retrieving his staff with shaking hands. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Anger? Fear? Respect? Maybe all three. If your God is so powerful, he said slowly, why did he let you be cast out? Why did he let you suffer for 6 days in this forest? Why didn't he strike us down on the spot? It was a good question. A fair question. And I realized, as I stood there in that clearing with lions around me and enemies before me, that I finally understood the answer. Because suffering isn't the opposite of God's love, I said. Jesus himself suffered. He was rejected, beaten, mocked, killed. But through his suffering, salvation came to the world. Through my suffering, my voice broke slightly, I've learned that he's real in a way I never would have otherwise. When you have everything, you don't really know if God is enough. But when you have nothing, when you're dying of thirst in a forest, when you're facing lions, when warriors are hunting you, and God shows up. You know. You know he's real. You know he's faithful. You know he's worth it. Tears were streaming down my face now. These 6 days have been the worst of my life. And the most precious. Because I met Jesus in this forest. Not just as an idea or a prayer, I met him as a person. A friend. A protector. A father. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. One of the warriors, a younger man I didn't recognize, dropped to his knees. I want to meet this Jesus, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. No. Chief Obinna snapped. Get up. We're leaving. Now. But the young man didn't move. Chief, I saw the spears. I saw them miss. That's not natural. That's not ancestral power. That's something else. Something bigger. If you pursue this blasphemy, Chief Obinna began. Then cast me out too, the young man said, lifting his chin. Because I want what she has. I want a God who sends lions to protect me. I want a God who's real. Another voice, I saw it too. The spear stopped in midair. I saw it with my own eyes. Then another, the lion shouldn't be acting this way. This is impossible. Unless her God is real, someone finished. Chief Obinna looked around at his warriors, men he'd controlled through fear and tradition for years, and saw that control slipping away. His face contorted with rage and something else. Something that looked almost like desperation. We are leaving, he said through gritted teeth. Anyone who stays is no longer part of this village. You will be cast out. Cut off. Alone. He turned and walked toward the forest. Dibia scrambled after him, clutching his useless staff. Most of the warriors followed, throwing nervous glances at the lions as they retreated. But 3 men stayed. The young warrior who'd knelt. An older man with gray in his beard. And Emeka, the same Emeka who'd pushed me across the boundary line 6 days ago. When the chief and the others had disappeared into the darkness, Emeka looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "I'm so sorry. For everything." "I forgive you," I said. And I meant it. Jesus forgave the people who killed him. How can I do less? "Tell us," the young warrior said. "Tell us how to know this Jesus. How to belong to him." And there, in a forest clearing, surrounded by 4 wild lions who were somehow tame, I led 3 men to Christ. I prayed with them. I watched them renounce the ancestor spirits and pledge their lives to Jesus. I witnessed their faces transform from fear to peace to joy. The lions watched. Patient. Protective. Witnesses to salvation. As dawn began to break, my 7th day in the wilderness, the lions stirred. The female who'd first protected me stood and walked over to me. She looked into my eyes one more time. And then she turned and walked away, back into the forest. The others followed, disappearing into the trees as silently as they'd come. They'd completed their mission. God had sent them for a purpose, and that purpose was fulfilled. I turned to the 3 new believers, my first spiritual sons, I realized, and smiled. "Now," I said, "we need to figure out how to get back to civilization." "There's a missionary outpost," the older man said. 2 days' walk northeast. "They have food, medical supplies, and," he grinned, "they're going to love this story." We started walking. Not back toward Adaorah, I could never return there. Forward. Toward a new life. A new beginning. And as we walked, I realized, the impossible situation had become an impossible testimony. God hadn't just saved me. He'd used me. To show his power. To prove his reality. To change hearts. The miracle wasn't over. It was just beginning. I need to take you back. Back to that moment when the lioness first positioned herself between me and certain death. Because what I'm about to tell you, what happened in that clearing over those 3 days, it needs to be said in full. Every detail. Every impossible moment. Because this isn't just my story. This is evidence. This is testimony. This is proof that the God of the Bible is still moving, still intervening, still doing miracles in 2024. When that first lioness roared and the warriors fled, I thought that was the miracle. I thought God had scared them away and now I'd be able to escape. But I was wrong. The miracle was so much bigger than a single moment. It was a 3-day demonstration of divine authority over creation itself. After the lioness laid down beside me that first night, I didn't sleep much. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, my mind screamed, "You're lying next to a wild lion. This is insane. This is impossible." But every time I opened my eyes, there she was. Solid. Real. Breathing. Her massive ribcage expanding and contracting with each breath. Her ears swiveling, tracking every sound in the forest. Alert. Protective. When dawn broke on that first morning, I was able to see her properly for the first time. She was magnificent. Her coat was tawny gold, darker along her spine, lighter on her belly. She had scars, evidence of battles, of survival in the wild. This was no zoo animal. This was a predator in her prime, probably 6 or 7 years old, experienced and deadly. And she was guarding me like I was her cub. As the sun climbed higher, I realized I had a problem. I desperately needed water. The jerrycan those farmers had left me was empty. I'd finished it the day before. My throat was dry again, my lips cracking. If I didn't find water soon, I'd be in serious trouble. I spoke to the lioness. I know how that sounds. But in that moment, with everything that had already happened, it felt natural. "I need water," I said out loud. "I don't know if you can understand me, but I need water." The lioness stood up, stretched, a long, luxurious stretch that showed every muscle in her body, and then looked at me. really looked at me like she was making a decision. Then she started walking. I didn't know what else to do, so I followed her. She led me through the forest for maybe 15 minutes, moving slowly, constantly checking over her shoulder to make sure I was keeping up. My legs were weak, my body was exhausted, but something in me knew she was taking me somewhere important. We emerged at a small stream. Clear water, flowing over rocks, sparkling in the morning sun. I nearly cried. I fell to my knees at the water's edge and drank deeply, thanking Jesus with every swallow. The lioness sat nearby, watching me, her tail swishing contentedly. When I'd drunk my fill, I looked at her. You knew. You knew where the water was. She blinked slowly, almost like a cat showing affection. Then she stood and walked back the way we'd come. I followed her back to the clearing, and she resumed her position, lying down in the grass with her gaze fixed on the forest. That's when I understood, this wasn't random animal behavior. God wasn't just using this lioness to protect me from warriors. He was using her to guide me. To provide for me. To show everyone who would eventually hear this story, that he has authority over his creation. That animals can be his instruments. That nothing is impossible for him. The second night, when the warriors returned with Chief Obinna and Dibia, when the 3 other lions appeared, that's when the miracle escalated to a level that still takes my breath away. I need you to understand, lions don't behave this way. Male lions are territorial. They fight each other. They don't coordinate with strange females. They don't form protective circles around humans. Everything about what those 4 lions did violated every known principle of animal behavior. When that first spear veered off course, I thought maybe the warrior had just aimed poorly in the torchlight. But when the second and third spears missed, when one literally stopped in midair, I knew. This wasn't chance. This wasn't luck. This was divine intervention so obvious, so undeniable, that even the warriors knew they were witnessing something supernatural. But here's what I haven't told you yet. Here's the part that still makes me weep when I remember it. When Dibia fell backward, when his ritual staff rolled away into the grass, when he lay there powerless and terrified, I saw something. Something the others didn't see because they were focused on the lions, on their fear, on their own survival. I saw figures. Not clearly. Not solid. But there, standing behind each lion, towering over them, translucent but unmistakably present. They were tall, easily 8 or 9 feet. Their forms glowed with a soft, golden light. And they held, I'm not imagining this, I saw it, they held swords. Not physical swords. Swords made of light. Of fire. Of something beyond material reality. Angels. God hadn't just sent lions. He'd sent angels to command the lions. To protect me. To demonstrate that the spiritual realm is real, that heaven has armies, that we don't fight alone. I gasped when I saw them. One of the new converts, the young warrior who'd knelt first, he looked at me sharply. What? What do you see? Angels, I whispered. Behind the lions. Do you see them? He squinted into the darkness, then his eyes went wide. I see light. Gold light. Is that? Yes, I breathed. Those are angels. Not everyone saw them. Chief Obinna didn't. Most of the warriors didn't. But those 3 men who stayed, who gave their lives to Jesus that night, they all saw something. A glow. A presence. Evidence that the miracle happening before our eyes had layers beyond what was physically visible. The third day, my final day in that clearing before we walked to the missionary outpost, the lioness did something that sealed my understanding of what God had orchestrated. I was sitting on the ground, weak from lack of food, when I heard rustling in the bushes nearby. My heart jumped, were the warriors coming back? But the lioness didn't tense. She actually looked calm. Almost pleased. A young warthog emerged from the undergrowth. Maybe 40 pounds. It saw us and froze. The lioness could have killed it in 2 seconds. One leap, one bite, and she'd have had breakfast. But she didn't move. She just watched it. The warthog stood there, trembling, its small eyes darting between the massive predator and me. Then the lioness made a sound. Not a roar. A soft chuff, the kind of sound mother lions make to their cubs. The warthog didn't run. Instead, impossibly, it walked toward us. Slowly. Cautiously. It walked right past the lioness, past a lion, and stopped about 2 meters from me. Then it collapsed. Just fell over sideways. I stared in shock. The lioness stood up, walked over to the warthog, and nosed it gently. It was dead. Not from injury. Not from violence. It was like it had simply given up its life. Offered itself. The lioness looked at me, then looked at the warthog, then back at me. The message was clear: eat. I can't, I said out loud. I don't have fire. I don't have tools to. The lioness bit into the warthog's shoulder and tore away a piece of meat. She dropped it at my feet. Then she backed away and lay down again. I sat there, staring at raw meat, my mind reeling. Was God really providing food this way? Through a lion hunting for me? Then I remembered Elijah. God sent ravens to feed Elijah. Birds brought him bread and meat. If God could use birds, why not a lion? I picked up the meat. I prayed over it, desperately, fervently, asking God to protect me from disease, from parasites, from whatever dangers came with eating raw wild meat. Then I ate it. It was the most profound meal of my life. Not because it tasted good, it didn't. It was tough and gamey and I had to chew forever. But because with every bite, I was eating provision. Miracle provision. Evidence that God sees, God cares, God acts. The lioness watched me eat, then she dragged the rest of the warthog into the bushes, presumably to eat it herself. When she returned, her muzzle was bloody, but her eyes were peaceful. Satisfied. We spent that day together, me and that lioness, in companionable silence. I prayed. I sang the few worship songs I'd learned from Brother Chukwuma. I talked to Jesus like he was sitting right there with me, because in a sense, he was. His presence was so tangible in that clearing I felt like I could reach out and touch him. At one point, I actually did reach out. Toward the lioness. My hand moved slowly, cautiously, expecting her to growl or pull away. But she didn't. She let me touch her. My fingers sank into her mane, coarse, thick, warm from the sun. I felt her pulse beneath the fur. Strong. Steady. Alive. And I wept. I wept because I was touching a wild lion and living. I wept because God had answered every single prayer, for water, for protection, for food, for companionship in the wilderness. I wept because 3 men had met Jesus because of this impossible situation. I wept because my children would grow up hearing this testimony, knowing their mother hadn't been abandoned, knowing miracles are real. Thank you, I whispered, my hand still resting on the lioness's mane. Thank you, Jesus. For seeing me. For saving me. For using me. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve any of this. But thank you. The lioness turned her great head and looked at me. And I swear on my life, on my children's lives, on everything I hold sacred, that animals' eyes held intelligence. Understanding. Purpose. Like she knew exactly why she was there. Like she was fulfilling an assignment given by the Creator himself. That night, the 3 new believers came back to the clearing. They'd gone to scout a safe route to the missionary outpost. They brought food they'd scavenged, fruit, some dried fish, a container of water. The lions were still there, all 4 of them, resting in the grass like enormous house cats. Emeka approached cautiously, holding out the food. We brought supplies for the journey tomorrow, he said. Then he looked at the lions. Will they come with us? I looked at the lioness who'd first protected me. I don't think so, I said softly. Their job is done. They were sent for a specific purpose, to protect me, to prove God's power, to create a testimony. Now it's time for us to move forward. As if she understood, the lioness stood. The other 3 lions rose as well. They gathered together, for majestic creatures united by divine purpose. Then, one by one, they walked to me. Each lion approached, close enough for me to smell their wild scent, close enough to touch. It was like they were saying goodbye. The last one, my lioness, the first one who'd found me, she pressed her forehead against my shoulder. Just for a moment. A gesture so tender, so impossible, that the 3 men gasped. She's blessing you, the older convert whispered. Even the animals know you belong to God. Then the lions turned and walked away. Not running. Not fleeing. Walking with dignity, with purpose, back into the forest from which they'd come. I watched until I couldn't see them anymore, until the darkness swallowed their golden forms completely. And I felt it, the completion. The miracle had run its full course. God had shown his power. He'd protected me. He'd provided for me. He'd converted 3 men. He'd humiliated the powers of darkness. He'd created a testimony that would spread across villages, across regions, maybe even across the world. Now what? The young warrior asked. I looked at him, at Emeka, at the older man. 3 brand new Christians. 3 men who'd risked everything to follow Jesus. 3 men who'd seen what I'd seen. Now we tell everyone, I said. We tell them what God did. We tell them about the lions. We tell them about the spears that missed. We tell them about the angels. We tell them that Jesus is alive. That he's real. That he's still doing miracles. They won't believe us, Emeka said quietly. Some won't, I agreed. But some will. And those who believe, their lives will be changed forever. Just like ours. We spent that night in the clearing, sleeping under the stars, protected now not by lions but by the same God who'd sent the lions. And I realized something profound. The miracle wasn't just about survival. It was about testimony. About creating a story so impossible, so undeniable, that it would force people to confront the reality of God. You can dismiss theology. You can argue with scripture. But you can't argue with 4 lions protecting a Christian woman. You can't explain away spears that stop in midair. You can't rationalize angels standing behind wild animals. This was God proving himself. Not subtly. Not ambiguously. Dramatically. Undeniably. In a way that left no room for doubt. When morning came, we packed up the meager supplies and began walking northeast, toward the missionary outpost. My body was weak, but my spirit was strong. Stronger than it had ever been. Because I'd lived through the impossible. I'd seen God command creation. I'd experienced biblical-level miracles in the 21st century. And nothing would ever be the same. The missionary outpost was called Hope Station. I didn't know that when we were walking toward it, limping, really, my feet bloody and swollen, my body running on nothing but adrenaline and divine strength. But when we finally stumbled out of the forest 2 days later and saw the small compound with its corrugated metal roofs and the wooden cross mounted on the tallest building, I understood why they'd chosen that name. Hope. That's what it represented. In a region where Christianity could get you killed, where traditional religion held people in spiritual bondage, where poverty and violence were daily realities, this little outpost was a beacon. A lighthouse. A place where hope wasn't just a word, but a tangible reality. We collapsed at the gate. Literally collapsed. I remember my knees hitting the dirt, my vision tunneling, and then voices, concerned, urgent voices, shouting for help. I woke up in a clean bed with white sheets. A ceiling fan rotated slowly above me. Mosquito netting draped around the bed. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Or dead. Because after 8 days in the forest, after sleeping on the ground with lions as my guardians, this level of comfort felt impossible. "She's awake," a woman's voice called out. "Pastor, she's awake." A Nigerian woman in her 50s rushed to my bedside. She had kind eyes and a warm smile that immediately made me feel safe. "Easy, sister," she said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder as I tried to sit up. "You've been through trauma. Your body needs rest." "The men," I croaked. My throat was still raw despite the 4 line I noticed in my arm. "The 3 men who came with me. Are they?" "They're fine," she assured me. "Fed, cleaned up, resting. They've been telling us the most extraordinary story. About lions. And warriors. And miracles." She paused, studying my face. "Is it true? All of it?" Before I could answer, a man entered the room. He was tall, perhaps 60 years old, with gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd seen both the best and worst of humanity. He wore a simple shirt and trousers, but there was authority in his presence. Not the oppressive authority of Chief Obinna, this was different. Gentler. Rooted in service rather than dominance. "I'm Pastor James," he said, extending his hand. "This is my wife, Ruth. We run Hope Station. And I have to tell you, in 23 years of missionary work in this region, I've never heard a testimony quite like yours." Over the next hour, while Ruth tended to my wounds, cleaning and bandaging my feet, treating my infected cuts, giving me sips of broth because my stomach couldn't handle solid food yet, I told them everything. Every detail. The cast out. The 6 days of wandering. The lioness appearing. The warriors coming with spears. The 3 other lions. The spears missing. The angels. The warthog. All of it. Pastor James listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from skepticism to wonder to awe. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and shook his head slowly. "Sister Adaorah," he said quietly, "do you understand what you've experienced? This isn't just a personal miracle. This is a testimony that could impact thousands of lives. Tens of thousands. This is the kind of story that breaks through hardened hearts." "I know," I whispered. "That's why I'm alive. Not just for me. For them. For everyone who needs to know Jesus is real." "We need to document this," Pastor James said, standing abruptly. "Properly. With statements from the men who witnessed it. With medical documentation of your condition. With everything that can substantiate what happened." He looked at me intently. "Because people will doubt. They'll say you're lying, or exaggerating, or mentally unstable. We need evidence." Over the next 3 days, as my body slowly healed, Pastor James became a detective for Jesus. He interviewed all 3 converts separately, recording their testimonies. He photographed my injuries. He documented the timeline. And then he did something I hadn't expected. He sent word to surrounding villages that he wanted to speak with anyone who'd encountered our group during those 8 days. The farmers who'd given me water came forward. They confirmed finding me alone, dying of thirst, in the forest on day 2. They confirmed leaving me the jerry can of water. And they confirmed hearing about Chief Obinna's death curse on me. "We were afraid," the younger farmer admitted, speaking to Pastor James while I listened from the next room. "We knew helping her could bring trouble. But we couldn't let her die. So we left the water and ran. We've felt guilty ever since." "You were used by God," Pastor James told him. "You may have been afraid, but you obeyed the conviction in your heart. That water kept her alive until the lions came. Then something happened that shook even me. A young woman arrived at Hope Station, traveling from a village 15 kilometers away. She was thin, nervous, constantly looking over her shoulder. She asked to speak with the woman who survived the lions. Ruth brought her to me. We sat together in the small garden behind the medical building, surrounded by flowering bushes that attracted butterflies. The woman couldn't have been more than 20 years old. "My name is Kayamika," she said in a whisper, as if afraid someone might overhear even here. "I heard about what happened to you. About the lions. About Jesus protecting you. Tears filled her eyes. I need to know, is it true? All of it? Every word, I said gently. Why? What's happening to you? She broke down sobbing. Ruth held her while the story poured out. Kayamika had been secretly attending Christian meetings in her village. Her father, a traditional priest like Dibia, had found out. He'd arranged for her to be purified through a ritual that involved. I won't describe it. It was horrific. Abusive. Traumatic. And it was scheduled to happen in 3 days. I want to run away, Kayamika wept. But where can I go? If I run, they'll find me. They'll kill me. But if I stay. She couldn't finish the sentence. I took her hands in mine. Look at me, I said. When her tear-filled eyes met mine, I spoke with every ounce of conviction in my spirit. The same Jesus who sent lions to protect me will protect you. I don't know how. I don't know what it will look like. But if you give your life to him, if you choose him over the fear, he will not abandon you. How can you be sure? Because I lived it, I said. Kayamika, I was hours from death. Multiple times. No water, no food, no shelter, warriors hunting me, a lion standing 10 feet away ready to kill me. Every natural circumstance said I should be dead. But I'm not. I'm here. Talking to you. Because Jesus kept his promise. He will never leave you or forsake you. Never. Right there in that garden, Kayamika gave her life to Jesus. Pastor James prayed with her, and then he did something remarkable. He offered her sanctuary at Hope Station. We can't send you back to that situation, he said firmly. You'll stay here. We'll get word to your family that you're safe, but we won't tell them where you are. And when the time is right, we'll help you relocate to a safer area where you can live freely as a Christian. Kayamika wasn't the only one. Over the next 2 weeks, as my story spread from village to village, 17 more people came to Hope Station. Some were secret believers living in fear. Some were curious non-Christians who'd heard about the lions and wanted to know more. Some were Muslims who'd heard the testimony and felt something stir in their hearts. I spoke with every single one. I told my story over and over until my voice was hoarse. And I watched transformation happen before my eyes. 8 people gave their lives to Jesus during those 2 weeks. 8 eternal decisions made because of what God had done in that forest clearing. But then something happened that I wasn't prepared for. Chief Obinna came to Hope Station. I was sitting outside, helping Ruth shell groundnuts for dinner, when I heard the commotion at the gate. Voices raised. Pastor James speaking firmly but calmly. And then, a voice I'd hoped never to hear again. I demand to speak with Adaorah. My hands froze. Groundnuts scattered across my lap. Ruth grabbed my arm. Stay here, she whispered. Don't go out there. But I stood up. Because suddenly I understood, this was part of it too. Part of the testimony. God hadn't brought me this far just to hide from the man who'd sentenced me to death. I walked to the gate. Pastor James tried to stop me, but I shook my head. It's all right, I said quietly. Let me speak with him. Chief Obinna stood outside the gate with 6 men, not warriors this time, but village elders. He looked different. Older. Diminished somehow. The arrogance was gone from his face, replaced by something that looked almost like confusion. You're alive, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact tinged with disbelief. Yes, I said simply. Jesus kept me alive. The lions were sent by God. You saw them. Your warriors saw them. Dibia saw them. You can't explain them away. Chief Obinna's jaw tightened. Dibia says you have powerful juju. That you've made a pact with forest spirits. Dibia is lying, I said, my voice steady. And he knows it. He threw his strongest curses at those lions and nothing happened. His power means nothing compared to the power of Jesus Christ. One of the elders, an old man I recognized from my village, stepped forward. "We came to see if the stories were true," he said. "People are talking all over the region about the woman who survived, about lions protecting a Christian, about spears that wouldn't hit their target." He looked at me with something that might have been respect. "Is it true? All of it?" "Every word," I said. Then I looked directly at Chief Obinna. "You sent me to die. But God sent me to live. So that everyone would know he's real. That he's powerful. That he's worth choosing, even if it costs you everything." "You've divided the village," Chief Obinna said, but his voice lacked its usual force. "3 warriors have abandoned us. They're telling everyone to follow your foreign god. People are questioning the ancestors. Questioning our ways. You brought chaos." "No," I said firmly. "I brought truth. And truth always disrupts lies. Your ways have kept people in bondage for generations. Fear. Shame. Endless appeasement of spirits who are never satisfied. Jesus offers freedom. Peace. Real relationship with the living God. That's not chaos, that's liberation." Silence. The elders looked at each other, uncertain. Then Chief Obinna said something that shocked me to my core. "I want to see them." "See who?" "The 3 warriors. The ones who converted. I want to hear from them. Why they chose this." Pastor James glanced at me. I nodded. He went inside and returned with Emeka, the young warrior, and the older man. They stood beside me, facing their former chief. "Tell him," I said gently. "Tell him why." Emeka spoke first. "Chief, I've served you for 12 years. I've carried out your orders, enforced your laws, defended the old ways. But that night in the forest," his voice shook, "I saw something that changed everything. Those lions shouldn't have protected her. The spears shouldn't have missed. By every natural law, we should have killed her easily. But we couldn't. Because God, her God, was protecting her. And I realized, if he has that much power, if he cares that much for one woman, then he's the God I want to serve." The young warrior added, "I saw angels. I didn't tell anyone except these few because I thought they'd say I was crazy. But I saw them. Standing behind the lions. Tall, glowing, carrying swords of fire. They were real, Chief. As real as you're standing in front of me now. And that's when I knew, we've been worshipping the wrong powers. The ancestors, the spirits, they're nothing compared to this. To Jesus." The older man looked Chief Obinna in the eye. "You cast her out to die. God sent lions to save her. You sent warriors to kill her. God made the spears miss. You sent Dibia to curse her. God made his curses powerless. Chief, at some point, you have to ask yourself, what if we're on the wrong side? What if the foreign God is actually the true God? And what if we've been serving darkness disguised as tradition?" I watched Chief Obinna's face as he listened. The elders were shifting uncomfortably, whispering to each other. This wasn't how they'd expected this confrontation to go. "If your God is so powerful," Chief Obinna said slowly, "why doesn't he force everyone to believe? Why give us a choice?" It was a genuine question. Maybe the first genuine question he'd ever asked about Jesus. "Because love requires choice," I said softly. "God doesn't want robots or slaves. He wants children. Family. People who choose to love him back. He could force everyone to bow down, he has that power. But he wants willing hearts, not coerced obedience. Even if people choose wrong? Even then. Because without the freedom to choose wrong, the choice to choose right means nothing." Chief Obinna stood there for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said something that made my heart nearly stop. "I need time. To think. To consider." He turned to leave, then paused. Without looking back, he said quietly, "I'm glad you didn't die, Adaorah." Then he and the elders walked away. Pastor James let out a breath he'd been holding. "Did that just happen?" he asked. "Did Chief Obinna just admit he was glad you survived?" "It's the Holy Spirit," I said, tears streaming down my face. "He's working on him. I don't know if the chief will ever convert, but God is working. Breaking down the walls. Cracking open the heart." Ruth hugged me tightly. "Your testimony is doing exactly what God intended," she whispered. "It's not just saving individuals, it's shaking entire systems of darkness. Over the following weeks, the ripple effects continued. 2 more warriors from Adaorah came to Hope Station and gave their lives to Jesus. A woman from a neighboring village whose daughter had been healed after prayer spread the story even further. A traveling trader who'd heard about the lions told everyone at every stop along his route. The testimony was spreading. Like wildfire. Like yeast in dough. Unstoppable. And every time someone new came to faith, every time another person said, "I want to know this Jesus who sends lions," I remembered that clearing. The lioness's breath on my face. The spear stopping in midair. The angels glowing behind the predators. I remembered, and I gave thanks because God hadn't just saved me. He'd created a testimony so powerful, so undeniable, that it was still changing lives. Still breaking chains. Still proving that he's real, he's active, and he's worth everything. I'm writing this from a small room at Hope Station. It's been 4 months since the lions. 4 months since my life ended and began again in the same impossible moment. I own nothing. The clothes I wear were donated. The shoes on my feet came from a visiting missionary team. The bed I sleep in belongs to the outpost. By every worldly measure, I've lost everything. My husband divorced me according to traditional custom. I'm considered dead to him, dead to my former family, dead to the village I called home for 32 years. But I've never been more alive. Every morning, I wake up and the first thing I do is thank Jesus that I'm still breathing. That my heart is still beating. That I survived the impossible and get to tell people about it for one more day. Because that's become my life now. My purpose. My mission. I tell the story. Over and over and over. To anyone who will listen. In the Hope Station compound. In nearby villages. At underground church meetings. To Muslims, to traditional religionists, to atheists, to Christians who've forgotten that God still does miracles. I tell them about the lions. About the spears. About the angels. About how Jesus proved that he's real, he's powerful, and he's absolutely worth losing everything for. And people keep responding. Last week, a Muslim woman named Zainab came to Hope Station. She'd walked for 2 days to find me. She'd heard about the lions from her cousin, who'd heard it from a trader, who'd heard it from one of the converts. By the time the story reached her, it had probably been embellished. People were saying I'd ridden the lions like horses, that I'd commanded them to attack the warriors, that I had magical powers. I had to set the record straight. I didn't command anything, I told her, sitting across from her in the small courtyard while Ruth served us tea. I was helpless. Dying. Terrified. I prayed to Jesus because I had no one else to turn to. And he sent the lions. He made the spears miss. He did it all. I was just there. Watching God be God. Zainab's eyes filled with tears. I prayed to Allah every day of my life, she whispered. 5 times a day. Perfect salah. I fast during Ramadan. I give alms. I do everything right. But I feel nothing. No connection. No response. Just emptiness. I know, I said gently, taking her hand. I know. Because I was there too. I grew up pouring libations to ancestors who never answered. I spent years trying to appease spirits who were never satisfied. It's exhausting, Zainab. Living for a God who never speaks back. Never shows up. Never proves he cares. But Jesus did? Yes. Not because I'm special. Not because I'm more holy or more righteous. But because Jesus is different. He doesn't demand endless performance. He offers relationship. He doesn't stay distant in heaven. He came down. He became human. He died for us. And then he rose. He's alive, Zainab. Not a dead prophet. Not a distant deity. Alive. And still doing miracles. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked the question I've heard from dozens of Muslims over these 4 months, but what about my family? What about my community? If I choose Jesus, I lose everything. I smiled sadly. I know. Because I lost everything too. My husband. My children. My home. My identity. Everything. I leaned forward, looking into her eyes. But Zainab, listen to me, Jesus is worth it. I'm not saying it won't hurt. I cry myself to sleep most nights, missing my babies. But even with all the pain, all the loss, I would make the same choice again. 1,000 times over. Because knowing Jesus, really knowing him, experiencing his presence, seeing his miracles, it's worth more than everything I lost combined. Zainab gave her life to Jesus that afternoon. She was baptized 3 days later in a small stream behind the compound. And when she came up out of the water, her face was radiant. That joy, that peace, that freedom, it's what keeps me going. Knowing that my story, my testimony, is leading people to encounter the living God. But it's not easy. 2 weeks ago, I received word through a traveling pastor that my children are asking about me. Chisholm, my youngest, cries for me every night. Ozioma, my oldest daughter, has become withdrawn, barely speaking. Kalechi keeps asking his father when Mama is coming home. When I heard that, I broke. I spent an entire night weeping in my room, questioning everything. Was it worth it? Did I do the right thing? What kind of mother chooses Jesus over her own children? Ruth found me at dawn, curled up on the floor, my eyes swollen from crying. She sat beside me and didn't say anything for a long time. Then she spoke quietly. Jesus said, anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. He also said, everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake will receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But they're suffering, I sobbed. My babies are suffering because of my choice. No, Ruth said firmly. They're suffering because of sin. Because of a system that punishes people for choosing truth. Because of spiritual darkness that holds communities hostage. You didn't cause that suffering, Adaorah. You exposed it. And one day, maybe not soon, but one day, your children will understand. They'll hear your testimony. They'll know you didn't abandon them. You chose life for them. Eternal life. Real freedom. You chose the narrow road so they could see it's possible to walk it. Her words helped. They didn't take away the pain, but they gave it context. Purpose. Meaning. And 2 days later, something happened that confirmed I was exactly where I needed to be. A man arrived at Hope Station. He was well-dressed, educated, spoke English fluently. He introduced himself as Dr. Namdi, a professor at a university in Lagos. He'd heard about my story through a network of Christians and had traveled to our region specifically to document it. Sister Adaorah, he said, shaking my hand with barely contained excitement, do you understand what you have? This testimony, properly documented, properly shared, could impact millions. Not just in Nigeria. Across Africa. Across the world. I blinked. The world? I'm just one woman telling what happened. Exactly, he said. You're not a trained evangelist. You're not a famous preacher. You're an ordinary woman who experienced an extraordinary miracle. That's what makes this so powerful. People can dismiss celebrity testimonies. They can say, oh, that person is performing, exaggerating, trying to get attention. But you? You're credible. You're real. And what happened to you is verifiable. We have multiple witnesses. We have the converts who were there. We have medical documentation of your condition. This is evidence. Dr. Namdi spent 3 days at Hope Station, recording everything. He videotaped my testimony, the full version, unedited, with all the details. He interviewed Pastor James, Ruth, the 3 converts, the farmers who gave me water, even Kayamika, and the others who'd come to faith after hearing my story. He photographed my scars, the cuts on my feet, the marks on my arms from thorns and branches. I'm going to write an article, he said before he left. And I'm going to submit your story to Christian media outlets. Radio. Television. Online platforms. People need to hear this. In an age of skepticism, of doubt, of people saying miracles don't happen anymore, you're proof that they do. After he left, I felt both excited and terrified. Excited because more people would hear about Jesus. Terrified because more attention meant more danger. If my story went viral, if it reached beyond this region, Chief Obinna wouldn't be the only one angry. There are people, powerful people, who hate Christianity, who see it as a threat, who would gladly silence testimonies like mine. But then I remembered the lions. If God sent lions to protect me in the wilderness, he could protect me anywhere. From anyone. 3 weeks ago, something incredible happened. Emeka, the warrior who'd pushed me across the village boundary on that terrible night, he brought me a visitor. A small visitor. My daughter. Chisholm. I saw her walking across the compound holding Emeka's hand, and my legs almost gave out. Ruth caught me. Breathe, she whispered. Just breathe. Chisholm saw me and stopped. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she let go of Emeka's hand and ran. She crashed into me so hard we both fell to the ground. And she held me. Her little arms wrapped around my neck so tightly I could barely breathe, and she sobbed into my shoulder. Mama, Mama, Mama. I held her and cried and thanked Jesus and promised her 100 times that I loved her, that I'd never stopped loving her, that I thought about her every single day. Emeka stood at a distance, giving us space. When Chisholm finally calmed down enough to talk, he explained, I told your husband I was taking her to visit relatives. He doesn't know I brought her here. We have 2 hours. Then I have to take her back. 2 hours. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. I held Chisholm in my lap and told her a simplified version of what had happened. About the lions. About how Jesus protected Mama. About how God is real and good and loves her so much. Will you come home? She asked, her big eyes full of hope. My heart shattered. I can't, baby. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But listen to me, I cupped her face in my hands, Mama is safe. Mama is happy. And Jesus is taking care of Mama. Can you be brave for me? Can you be strong? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. And when you're scared at night, I continued, when you miss Mama, I want you to pray to Jesus. Just talk to him like you're talking to me. Tell him you're scared. Tell him you miss Mama. And he will comfort you. He will. I promise. Does Jesus have lions? She asked seriously. I laughed through my tears. Yes, baby. Jesus has lions. And birds. And all the animals. He made them all. And if he wants to, he can send them to help us. Just like he did for Mama. When Emeka said it was time to go, I thought I would die. Chisholm clung to me, begging to stay, and I had to gently pry her arms from around my neck. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than the forest. Harder than the lions. Harder than anything. But as I watched Emeka lead her away, her small hand in his big one, I felt Jesus whisper to my heart, I will take care of her. She is mine too. Trust me. So I'm trusting. Because what else can I do? Here's what I know now, for months after the miracle, following Jesus doesn't mean your life gets easier. It doesn't mean you stop hurting. It doesn't mean you get all the answers or that everything works out the way you want. But it does mean you're never alone. It means your suffering has purpose. It means miracles are real and God is active and nothing is impossible for him. I live in a refugee compound now. I have no money. I depend on charity for food, for shelter, for clothing. My children are growing up without me. My former community considers me dead, cursed, contaminated. But I have Jesus. And he is enough. More than enough. He's everything. So now I'm going to talk directly to you. Yes, you. The person watching this video, hearing this testimony, reading these words. I need you to understand something. If you're Muslim, I was like you. I prayed 5 times a day. I followed the rules. I sought Allah desperately. And I felt nothing. But when I cried out to Jesus, he answered. Not with silence. With lions. With miracles. With presence. You don't have to stay in spiritual emptiness. Jesus is calling you. He sees you. He knows you. And he's waiting for you to call his name. If you're atheist or agnostic, you think miracles are fairy tales? Superstition? I have witnesses. Multiple witnesses. Documented evidence. People who saw what I'm telling you. The farmers who gave me water. The warriors who watched their spears miss. The converts who saw angels. The medical staff who documented my condition. This isn't a story. This is history. This happened. And if God can do this for me, he can prove himself to you too. Ask him. Seriously. Say, Jesus, if you're real, show me. And watch what happens. If you're Christian, stop living like miracles ended with the Bible. They didn't. God is still moving. Still healing. Still protecting. Still doing the impossible. But he needs people willing to step out in faith. To risk everything. To believe he's who he says he is. Your comfortable Christianity isn't changing the world. We need radical faith. The kind that says, even if you don't rescue me, I'm still yours. That's the faith that activates miracles. If you're facing persecution, I know your fear. I know what it's like to lose everything. To face death threats. To be hunted. But listen to me, Jesus is worth it. I can't promise he'll send lions for you. I can't promise he'll make the spears miss. But I can promise he'll be with you. Every step. Every moment. Even if he allows you to suffer, even if he allows you to die, you will never be alone. And eternity with him makes every sacrifice worth it. If you're considering following Jesus but scared of the cost, yes, it will cost you everything. Maybe your family. Maybe your community. Maybe your reputation. Maybe your life. But here's the truth, you're going to die anyway. Everyone dies. The question is, what will you die for? Will you die having played it safe, having chosen comfort over truth, having rejected the God who died for you? Or will you die knowing you gave everything for the one thing that lasts forever? I'm asking you, I'm begging you, don't wait. Don't wait for a death sentence to call on Jesus. Don't wait until you're facing lions or warriors or impossible situations. Call on him now. While you have breath. While you have choice. Pray with me. Right now. Out loud if you can. Say, Jesus, I don't know if you're real. But I want to know. If you can send lions to protect someone, if you can make spears miss, if you can do miracles, then do one for me. Prove yourself. Show me you're real. I'm willing to lose everything if you're worth it. Save me. I'm yours. If you prayed that, if you meant that, everything just changed. You're not the same person you were 60 seconds ago. You just became a child of God. A son or daughter of the King. And nothing, no demon, no government, no person, no circumstance, can take that away from you. Jesus is not dead. The tomb is empty. He's alive. And he's still doing miracles. I'm proof. Those lions are proof. The converts are proof. The changed lives are proof. Don't let this testimony be just another story you heard. Let it be the moment everything changed. The moment you said yes to Jesus. Because he's saying yes to you. He's been saying yes to you. Your whole life. Every breath. Every sunrise. Every moment of grace. He's been calling you, drawing you, pursuing you. Stop running. Turn around. And let him catch you. I lost everything for Jesus. My home. My family. My identity. My security. And I gained everything. Peace. Purpose. Presence. Miracles. He's worth it. I promise you. With everything in me. Jesus is worth it. So choose him. Today. Now. Before it's too late. Because none of us are promised tomorrow. But we are promised that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Call on him. He's listening. He's waiting. He's ready to move in your life. Just like he moved in mine. With lions. And miracles. And proof that he's real. My name is Adaorah. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I was cast out to die in the Nigerian wilderness. And God sent lions to protect me. This is my testimony. This is my truth. This is my life. And it can be yours too. Just say his name. Jesus. He'll do the rest.